stricken, smitten, and afflicted. See him dying on the tree. 'Tis the Christ, by man rejected. Yes, my soul, 'tis he, 'tis he. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. And he shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. And this is what Good Friday is about. It's about the time the serpent struck the heel of the offspring of the woman. It's about the time that an ancient enmity found its climax at the cross. And when they came to the place of the skull, there they crucified him. A Roman crucifixion was designed to be as agonizing as possible, and the Romans were good at what they did. Nails were driven through Jesus' wrists to hold him to the cross, and because he was hung from his hands, the muscles in his chest would have constricted his breathing, which is what eventually kills a crucified man. But to slow the process, the Romans drove nails through the feet, piercing the heel bone, to allow the crucified victim to push up against his own broken bones to get another breath of air. But of course, this would have split the bones further and been excruciating. And to slow the process even farther, the Romans would often put a sheet of wood so that the victim could rest part of his weight and get just another breath of air. And these measures could keep a victim of crucifixion alive for days until pain and exhaustion overcame them. And so think of this. The crucifixion lasted until it was so painful that it wasn't worth it even to breathe. And the cross made a man his own torturer, inflicting agonizing pain on himself to put off death until he couldn't do it any longer. And this is why crucifixion stands behind our word, excruciating. And all this is what happened to Jesus. These are the sufferings that came at him from the outside in. But what did it do to him? What was he suffering? Did he scream in pain? Did he cry? Was he calm in the face of his agony? The gospel authors don't tell us, but they give us one window into what was going on in his soul, one anguished cry, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? Because underneath the physical sufferings of the cross, they're showing us a greater suffering. The serpent was striking Jesus' heel. And this was the venom in the serpent's fangs, the pains of hell, separation from God, and death to the fullest. It was the punishment that every child of Adam before him had deserved. Like little children get their human nature from their human parents, so we all get our sinful nature from our sinful parents. But Jesus was God and man in one person and had no sinful nature, but nevertheless, he was identifying with fallen man and allowing himself to be treated like one of them. And so on this Good Friday, almost 2,000 years ago, he allowed himself to be punished with all the punishment due to sin. And Satan was only too happy to comply. And so the serpent came to the last Adam, and after jeering him through the mouths of Roman soldiers, mocking Jews, and even 2 criminals, he came near himself, almost coiling around the foot of the cross, and struck. And the first innocent man the world has ever seen was punished with what the first guilty man deserved. And the venom of the serpent's sting flowed through him. And the punishment of sin, the wrath of God, and the pains of hell fell on the one man who had had perfect communion with God from his birth, so that he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And then what happened to him? He sank. He sank like a man thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around his neck. He sank out of fellowship with God. He sank out of joy. He sank into the depths of misery and wrath. He descended into hell. And the first and the last innocent man, full of a wrath he had not earned, came to the end of himself. He breathed his last. He sank down to the place of the dead and died. So you, who think of sin but lightly, nor suppose the evil great, here may view its nature rightly, here its guilt may estimate. Mark the sacrifice appointed. See who bears the awful load. 'Tis the Christ, the Lord's anointed, Son of Man and Son of God.